So the gaming industry at large isn't doing so great in 2024. We've talked about this at length. Big budget games are not meeting expectations. Live service slop has been failing, rightfully so. Layoffs are happening all over the place. And despite a few standout successes in the AA indie and, of course, From Software world, AAA has been having another rough year. And that seems to be the trend these days for almost all AAA companies. But probably in the worst shape of all is Xbox. My concerns around Xbox and its future have grown exponentially over the last few years. Phil Spencer has turned out to be one of the biggest disappointments across the entire gaming industry. He's been head of Xbox for 10 years now and has absolutely nothing to show for it. He started off saying the right things in the beginning and always gave the fans some kind of hope with promises of doing right by gamers. And then he led the charge on acquisitions like Activision Blizzard and ZeniMax Bethesda, which sounded promising but have ultimately been huge disasters. Xbox is sitting on some of the greatest IPs. They've acquired some of the largest studios, but despite the billions they've spent on those IPs and those studios, they've done nothing with them. And the only thing left saving Xbox at this point is Game Pass, which already is starting to feel less and less worth it as time goes on. So I just gotta ask, what the hell happened to Xbox? Now first we need to talk about Sony. So console war fanboying is pathetic and cringe behavior, but the console war itself is still a very relevant and real thing that dictates the state of the industry. Competition always has driven the creation of good products. But unfortunately, there just isn't any real competition happening these days. Undeniably, Sony is winning the console war. They don't even need to compete with Xbox because they're outselling consoles 3-1, and in turn, Sony has gotten extremely cocky. It's why they know they're able to sell the PS5 Pro for $700. It's why they're comfortable re-releasing the same game over and over again with 5% better graphics each time. And if Xbox could actually produce some incredible first-party games, maybe Sony would be having to try and compete in some way. But they don't. So while Sony sucks because of how they've been acting lately with all the remasters, remakes, and lack of games, a lot of the fault lays at Xbox because they're Sony's primary competition that just isn't even putting up a fight. Sony can do whatever they want because Xbox is constantly shitting the bed. It wasn't always this way. Xbox used to rule the gaming industry. The 360 released a year before the PS3, and for the most part during that console generation, Xbox absolutely dominated with incredible first-party titles and outsold and outperformed the PS3 for a majority of that console generation. Now if we compare that to the original Xbox, which sold 24 million units, versus the PlayStation 2, which sold 150 million units, and of course looking at the state of the industry today where PlayStation is outselling Xbox, if we look back now with all this information, it's wild to see how short-lived Xbox's reign over PlayStation really was. It only lasted really 5 or 6 years. And with the 360, Xbox could have failed with the Red Ring of Death issue that plagued millions of systems, but they were on top of repairs which cost them a fortune, but it kept them afloat for the first few years of the 360's generation and helped them maintain the market share for a while. And they just stayed consistent during this generation, putting out great games and great services. However, with the Xbox One, the writing was on the wall from the moment it was revealed. The 2013 E3 presentation was incredibly out of touch with gamers and what they wanted from a console. It was really the beginning of the end for Xbox, but it didn't have to be. Yeah, they screwed themselves pretty bad with the Xbox One's initial release, but it's the decisions that followed that would keep them behind indefinitely in the console war. Xbox basically just threw their hands up and said, yep, we can't compete with Sony or Nintendo at the console level anymore, so they started to move away from focusing on hardware. Instead, their new focus would be trying to capitalize on digital services like Game Pass and Xbox Game Cloud. Initially, it seemed like they wanted to sell consoles to get people hooked on Game Pass, and that would be their new primary source of revenue. That's why they were selling consoles at a loss initially, but the console sales just weren't doing good enough, so this is why in 2019 they brought Game Pass to PC as well, so they could cash in on some more subscription revenue without needing to sell any hardware. And shortly after this is when Xbox began their big acquisition plans. It seemed like their goal was to use these acquisitions to boost their console exclusives. Securing Bethesda gives them Fallout and The Elder Scrolls right off the bat, two of the most popular franchises in gaming, and not to mention all the other great IPs that fall under the Bethesda umbrella. With Activision, it was all about Call of Duty. Yeah, they owned Diablo, WoW, and Overwatch, but COD was really the big one. But with COD, they couldn't really make it exclusive. They would be leaving way too much money on the table if they decided to actually do that. So COD stayed multi-platform, and now Microsoft reaps the benefits of that microtransaction slopfest. And on top of the major acquisitions, Microsoft has acquired so many other great studios, but for some reason they just aren't developing games with them. They're letting some of their best IPs sit dormant, and it's honestly getting a bit ridiculous at this point. Xbox could be competing, even if it's just in the making games department, but they aren't even doing that. And it's not like Sony is doing anything either. They've been memed on since 2020 about how the PS5 has no games. Their decision making isn't on point either, trying to bank on Concord, canceling a bunch of games, purchasing Bungie Studios, which is already looking like a failed investment. So we have two opposing consoles from Sony and Microsoft, and neither of them are doing anything for the industry right now. They're just sitting on some of the best IPs in the world. They have more than enough money to fund the various studios' games, but they just aren't doing anything. Well, I guess they actually are both introducing thousands of layoffs, so there's that. Sony has closed down 4 studios in 4 years, including Japan Studio, one of the most iconic and important studios to Sony's history. Microsoft has shut down Arcane Austin and Tango Gameworks, one of which made a bit of sense with the failure of Redfall, but Tango Gameworks made one of the highest rated games with Hi-Fi Rush in recent memory, and Microsoft's gaming division has cut over 2,500 jobs since 2023. Some of these layoffs could be attributed to overhiring that took place during the COVID years when gaming really boomed and all the tech companies went on a hiring frenzy. However, I do think that maybe instead of layoffs, Microsoft and Sony both could have invested into some amazing projects and flooded the industry with some epic high-quality AAA games. But of course, that didn't happen, because these companies are fucking retarded. But Xbox is still in more dire straits than PlayStation because while Xbox has clearly given up trying to compete with Sony, third-party developers have given up trying to even make games for the Xbox console. Black Myth Wukong was made for PlayStation and PC without a specific exclusivity deal with Sony, as far as I know, and the developers have said that they're still optimizing an Xbox Series X and S version, so its release date is still unknown at this point. Baldur's Gate 3 developers had similar issues with getting co-op to work on the Xbox Series consoles, and had to delay the game there as well. Capcom isn't porting a lot of their games to the Xbox due to issues with their engine running on the consoles. And there's a lot more examples where people are just opting out of Xbox development. And like I mentioned earlier, Game Pass has lost a lot of its value as well, with Game Pass having different tiers with increased cost now. Day 1 Game Pass releases are no longer available to the base subscription, and you'll need to upgrade to Ultimate to get them, which is $20 a month. Honestly, just a bit ridiculous at this point. $240 a year is kind of nuts for a service that just doesn't deliver enough exclusives. But to be honest, there's basically no reason to own an Xbox or even a PlayStation at this point, when every major release from both Sony and Xbox comes to PC anyway, even if the Sony games come a little bit later down the road. What the hell happened to Xbox and PlayStation? These consoles are practically worthless these days. They just aren't putting out enough games. They have so many great IPs, I've said it 5 times in this video already. They have so many good IPs, so much great talent. Well, who knows, a lot of the fucking talented developers have all disappeared apparently. But they both feel like such directionless companies at this point. They just stopped making games. It's driving me nuts, and it sucks. It's hard to say what the future will look like for consoles. Xbox might not even develop another console down the road, but who knows. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.